You guys, I need to let you know something. Joey's not okay right now. He's in the throes. He's in the throes of having another baby. He's already got a baby, so he's gonna be like pooping with 2 babies, you know. At least he's not breastfeeding too. Lindsay's gonna be busy too. And we are here getting another episode in on Vivian. Thinking, so where we're at here, we took her to Sandsport show, which was the 16th, 17th, 18th of September. Had a pretty, that's a long run. Usually you hear a little like a skip of the beat. That's some serious hammer for me. I'm gonna say that's Scotty. Scotty's got a little more endurance than old Tatanka Sean. Big crunch to go to Sandsport show. Get as much done as we could. It wasn't so much get, let's go to the front. Let's get the view up here. It wasn't so much of a have it like running and done and driving, but we had obligations with KC Highlights to have it in the KC Highlights booth. So I wonder if I can get this. There we go. Can't let it be like that. Had obligations to have it in the booth. Yeah, obviously KC helped us out with all the lighting on here. Eric's worked with KC for many years. We had the Baja Bug in Sandsports the year before at the KC booth. So this was just the next iteration. I had a lot of concerns in my own stinking thinking as far as bringing this thing unfinished, bringing it as a raw vehicle. There's a lot of stuff going on in my head where fights me on things or sabotages me, or it's just not proper thinking. So part of the deal with this is I have like my circle of like owners and operators and fabricators and just people. I have some good, wholesome people in my life to kind of run things by, because I know that my thinking is not necessarily always, most of the time, is not optimal. I can do this stuff and do the best to run a business, but a lot of times, like when I get in my head about stuff, my mom always used to say, your head is like a bad neighborhood, you never want to go there alone, and I'll walk those streets. So, blah, blah, blah. This is blown apart from Sandsports. It's in its current state of what we're working on. There's a lot of stuff done on the inside. All the panel work is done. We're just in a good spot to look at it and check it out and go through everything. Without thinking too much of where we were last time, I know, let me think for a second where we were. I know I had some of the panels started. I didn't have all of the outside enclosure panels done. We had started some. I think we just had the passenger side roughed up in there. Now we have a almost complete fuel tank. Everything is welded internally. Hi, Alex. I have to show you something. The camera. See, there's the camera. You guys, this is Alex. This is my newest guy.
That's me.
Alex came from diesel mechanic, oil rig, fabricator, mechanic, fix-it guy.
Dirty stuff.
Yeah, and he's kicking ass, and I believe in him, and he's doing good, and I just want, you hear Colin a lot, and now you're probably gonna start to hear Alex a lot.
Just a little bit.
So Alex has helped us on this thing too, and just everything, and that's it. I just wanted to have your face be known.
Cool.
And he does have a sole. Don't. He's got a sole. Stop it.
Ginger.
Whoa. To fill in the blanks. I think I left off right now talking about the fuel tank. All the internal stuff is welded. Still got to do the outside. It's just it's a Morgan sit down for all day maybe and weld it. Might not take all day since the inside's all done and stitched. But just looking at what's here. The shock package is on. Coilovers, bypasses are in. Obviously all modular tin work. I'll pop one just to kind of look at it. But we'll do that just for fun. So obviously, I like to try to incorporate some of the chassis spring plates with like multi-piece. So obviously there's a step in here and this guy grabs them, but modular, when I say that, it just means like building one thing where it comes apart in pieces that are kind of indexed together, almost like Legos. I don't know if you could call Legos modular, but it's my term that I've adopted and I'm just gonna run it until it's a problem. So with that, this middle portion was kind of like the order of arrangements here is these come out with shocks on or off. So I didn't want to dive too deep. They clearance through here. They stay true to the outside surfaces. They do not go inside. Venting for the cooler that's in there. You know, venting everywhere. So you get induction here and then you get exhaust everywhere in that flow. There's no trapped air. There's enough style points to go through here. Like even this piece, I drew through, so like even if you see that line carries the bump stop top plate and carries this all the way through as one cut. This is kind of our signature thing we're doing now, as far as like, and I say signature, I mean, it's something I've adopted as a style and a design and I don't see anybody else doing it, so I'm gonna just you know, California gold mine, just lay claim to this thing. But not just that deep step with the two-tone, but also stepping our mesh cutouts, you know, so even if this didn't have like material here and we were doing a mesh cutout here, I'd still put a step in it, meaning like this part where the surfacing goes down to add dimension and then grab the mesh. Back to the modular thing, these things come off with 3 pieces. The middle portion made sense to make as the mediator with the front and the rear because the battery boxes, they're Dirt King battery boxes hiding in here. Kind of see this stuff. I can at least make the top part of the tray move so you can hear it and see it. So that stuff's done. This is kind of the treatment. I love to see this portion of the treatment. The treatment, you know, aluminum treatment, it's just like dressing a chassis with sheet metal is my favorite thing. Welding's one of those things for me. I get it done, I do it because I have to. It takes so much time. It needs to be TIG welded, but man, if there's people that love to just sit and weld, dude, A+, do that. Come do it for me. Anyways, the most satisfying thing for me that I get really fast results with is just doing sheet metal and really finishing stuff. So you guys can see this is kind of your access opening area here. And then there's also Dirt King limit strap clevises. We're running triple straps on each side in the back. See these big dogs, big old chunkies, but you can really see what's going on in here. There's kind of another whole structure just for the limit strap clevis that ties everything in, and it also adds as a gusset because back here there's a weird connection. I know it's hard to see, but we needed to have like where this tube just stabbed into this existing part of the chassis, and we needed to get a gusset, like something that tied all this together. So now there's a big plate gusset back here that not only adds as a landing pad for the plate work for the limit strap clevis, but also ties the whole chassis in, just so it's not in a compromised area. I don't know if you guys can see that. To better serve you, I want to kind of show you fitment, and then get up here, show you what's going on here. So the way this is going to work in here, you can see that it's a pretty deep trough or hole. maybe 24 to 26 inches from, you know, bottom to top. What we're going to do is that width is actually built for the speed case with the Izzy holder. So we'll have a speed tools case. We'll have our hybrid cooler like we talked about, some recovery items, and whatever miscellaneous stuff you want. This is obviously just kind of an access panel, but it's all 90 thou thick, so it'll be in a good spot for putting stuff in, or even if you drop stuff in here, it's not going to dent. And then, you know, this other portion here, this is raised. We can run our, like, all of this is kind of thought out. So even through this portion, you know, you have your pickup down here. The pickup is going to run up, and then you have a fill and a return and a breather. And all these lines are going to go right in through this trough. So that's the whole point of that. I mean, you can obviously see there's some pretty good symmetry here. Classic, standard, you know, MCD1 spec sheet metal. So everything is pretty dialed. I left these open, so there's a return here where you can see the quarter turn fastener areas. These pickups will go. Once we finalize kind of the windowsill here, get rid of this little beaver mouth bite here, and then, you know, obviously add some shape and finish the panel work, complete this little section. This will need to be filled for nitrogen, but it's not enough of a thing where you need to like have a hole in the panel for it, because you're not going to fill it that often. So I'd rather have an enclosed panel that's got quarter turn fasteners that has some good shape here. And then, you know, if you need to fill this, then you just pop your quarter turns out and pull this thing off and you service it. But that's why this is broken up. You don't want to have it all one panel, because then it's going to be too hard to get after something small like that. There's a significant trim we did on the cab just to make sure the bypasses are happy when the thing starts swinging. You know, if it's doing that, then it's going to start to sway, and we want to make sure nothing's crashing on either side. So this cab came from another dude that had it, that was gonna, like the 73 F-100 cab came from another fella, and he cut some pretty insane holes in it. Usually you kind of have a relief hole for your chassis, your cage work to come through on the top, on the sides, but there's like 3-inch, big old guy, 3-inch inset, quite a bit, maybe 15 to 18 inches inset on the cab. I knew that we had a lighting. I ordered what we wanted from Casey, you know, as far as lighting package. The rear facing bar was definitely one of those. And I knew, like, my old truck Beth has this kind of thing. I used to call it like a backwards hat, like a flat bill off the back. But it's a nice, like a functional styled portion. It's a nice functional piece to have off the back of the truck. I like to kind of draw some of the shape off. You know, you can get away with this having, you know, the roof, the OEM sheet metal kind of dive off into the window. But I think when you can kind of draw like shape off the back of the truck and kind of taper down and have like a lip like this, there's something that works really well with that. So that just made perfect sense to put the light bar in there. With that, when we were doing the crunch for Sand Sports, this was the last thing I waited to do. I started this, that's why it's tacked. I started it at 7:30 on Thursday night with a Friday morning departure from here to the Sand Sports show. But I knew it would be something I really enjoyed doing, and that's the stuff that will keep me working harder than anything else. Instead of having tedious work to do, it would be just something that can keep me alive when things get late or I run out of energy. So you can see it's kind of half done. Everything, you'll see the Clecos on here. Once we start going through the areas with Clecos, it only makes sense to run these until we final everything. Everything gets powder coated. A lot of the panels that have the Clecos are getting powder coat, and then they're going to get a solid rivet, which is like an aircraft style rivet. And we're not going to put those in until we absolutely need to. So to just finish everything with the rivets like that, it would be, just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. And showing it under construction like this is what makes the most sense. You can see there's buggy whip provisions on each side. Kind of just ghosted in, so you actually won't see the tab from the side. They kind of just live in this little pocket. And then again, you know, touching on this thing, I did it and I knew that time was limited, so like that's why it's tacked. I can kind of see I'm not quite happy with everything we got there as far as the shaping on this, so I'm probably gonna like pop some of the tacks off, and really, this is like something you really need to get right as far as getting the radius right. You don't want to have like a wobble master kind of thing going on. And then, you know, there's pickups. So the spring plates, these are welded to the cab. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it's all streamlined and tight. Kind of favors this. I need to work this a little more, right? It's just rough. And then under here, put a brake in there. So there's a couple pickups here. There's 4 Zeus button pickups in here. And with that, that'll still enable the window to go in and out. The number one thing for the back here is restoring, I guess not restoring, but retaining a factory style back window. So the shock mount, same how the stick out with the shock mounts like this, there's another piece that goes in here. That's the, you know, the window like retainer, the shelf there, and everything is built to fit another window. So we'll have a piece of glass cut. Mike will do us a piece of glass and we'll put that in. But one of the biggest things to note is when you're building stuff like this and you're cutting things really close to the cab here, make sure that you can fit the back window in. If you ever see a truck and it doesn't have that back window in there and everything else is done on it, mark my words, it's because that window doesn't fit in there. So just things to think about. Take those steps as a precautionary measure just to know what's up. Even if you have, you know, you could maybe do a 1/8 inch piece of aluminum if you're getting a window made or something, just to make sure it fits, make sure it comes in and out, because it's a thing. And the back window really finishes the truck. So I talked about this briefly. Just seemed like a void there where we could get some space for like the battery trays, and then got the battery trays and they worked out so good being in a way lower, kind of lower center area, spread into the chassis a little more, that there's like a nice void there. Now, what I'd like to see happen there is fuel pump, fuel filter. We're running dual, so they'll be redundant. Leading into there, we'll probably have a partition. Colin kind of mentioned that same thing about the batteries being there and just not wanting to be messing with fuel and electric and those things. So we will assess that first before stacking them, because that might be weird, and I'm sure there'll be comments about that. If not, we can run them right through here and proper here or in here. This is pretty easy to get to if you needed to get to the fuel pump or service the filters. What else do we have back here? So everything is set up. We're gonna put our brakes on, rotors on, all that stuff will be done. We'll plumb the brakes. Third member is done. All the internals, Jumbo 36 axles are all good. So Colin's working right now and we're interrupting his work schedule. So Joey's having a baby. Gotta do this during the work week now. Usually Joey and I come on a weekend or someday where either at night or just in the mornings when it's not a work environment, so we can get this stuff done and not interrupt the guys or be in the mix. And then I can just be intimate and talk about the things. Anyways, this is the front. It's raw right now. Colin's gonna be putting it together because he needs to start working more into the structure and tabs. But you can see now we have some pretty good stuff going on here as far as symmetry. We both have boners for running a lot of the smaller diameter tube for support structures like this. This is our classic kind of threaded aluminum rods to hold down. There's another vertical hold down going behind here in between the two fans. Again, going back to truggy form, we want to make sure we're not building stuff on here that's going to make this thing not be a truggy. And what would hinder that would be like the, you know, the grille and headlight and fender mounting area here. So this whole part is on tube connectors. This will be removable. And then the actual radiator tray and the structure there, that comes off by itself too. But when you take this off, then you're just dealing with, this is the max width here on the chassis in the front. All right, so what you can see, again, kind of touching on symmetry, some pretty good stuff here. Obviously this is a secondary substructure. We'll do substructure 1, holding the radiator in, bolting into this bulkhead here. Right, there's these are sleeves with aluminum slugs inside, so it's kind of a consumable, and there's still a little bit of movement Not a lot, but it's not just a solid slug of steel. And what you can see is like everything's kind of been thought out as far as removal and service, like the bolt, you know, being respectful of where the upper arm hardware is and making sure that comes out. You can see the tube connectors kind of hiding in here right now. So that's all for the secondary substructure. But again, this is layers. So the bumper lives here as a permanent fixture. It's all 2-inch. Obviously, have some good style points on this thing. This is for our KC Pro 6 that goes in here. It sets back a little bit. And then, you know, nice caps on here, kind of our style. Putting some attention and detail into even the finish on the caps, because the bumper is one of those things you see as a primary focal point when you're looking at a truck, especially when it's all dressed. One other kind of win we got is the original tube. So that was the original, you know, skid plate tubes right there. That big high angle guy. That was what, you know, we had a skid plate go into that, and now we have a new approach, which is a lot, just much greater as far as, you know, safety and stuff in this thing. It's not just kind of hitting. This was almost like a curb, you know, down there. So now you're not going to just take a chunk out. You'll be able to kind of disperse whatever situations you get into with this thing. But you can see there's a lot of structure in there and a lot of style, always. There's a lot going on, so we need to start looking like you're getting a lot of different stuff through here. But you can see there's kind of a really cool vibe. It's almost like everything kind of branches out, right? It all kind of comes through here. This is your lower tray, and it's all connected. So that whole thing, that tray all comes out and it all goes to this bulkhead. So you can see the tube connector here, and then this middle portion, this hold down, that's all mounted on a Fifi on the outside here. So that, you know, you undo the support rods, 1, 2, 3, and then take that off, or just flip it. You know, this will just pivot. Radiator comes out. You don't have to take the whole thing out, take the radiator out. And then if you want to, if you don't have this stuff on, then you just undo this bolt, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that whole thing comes out to get to the motor. Or, you know, if you had to, like, maybe removing the steering box would be a little easier. But, you know, getting some good design in here as far as structure. Colin's working on doing final setting of the grill and the fenders and making sure that's all aligned, because we have one more tab that's going to add a lot of rigidity here that we're going to sink into this portion, this little triangle here. And once that's there, it's going to, like, because there's still a little bit of movement here, and once that's there, it's going to really set in stone where we're at for alignment. So this kind of takes care of the front right now. I really like what we're getting here for support. I think that this is also going to lend to some really good panel work, not just for ducting the radiator, but also for, like, you know, interior wheel opening panels. This has got a really good, like, Eiffel Tower bridge kind of style thing going on. That's a terrible reference, I know. Something else to look at. Finally got Eric's rusty upper arms powder coated. This is satin black. We're going to do everything on the car as far as the suspension, satin black. So we'll blow all that apart. We have all RPI 12-point aircraft certified hardware. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying that quite a bit. That's going to go in all of our landing gear and pivot points. That stuff will go on when the car is final. But we're not doing any of that hardware until we actually have the chassis painted. So speaking of that, I think what we want to do is move into the inside of this thing. To address another thing, yeah, we're jumping around. It's fine. We're jumping around. It's all about the truck, okay? We're gonna leave this stuff. This is maximum patina. I think there's something really cool about the contrast. This is always what we wanted to do with the truck. We wanted to run heavy patina, not a complete full sealed truck, not like AC and carpet and all that. Wasn't gonna have that. So, you know, having the body closed in interior wise, for sure that. Having windows in it, yes, that. Having a windshield, yes, that, but not like airtight situation. The cab, like, it plays a beautiful part in the patina part. The fenders, once these go on, I'm gonna do kind of research. I've already been looking at it a little bit, but what I wanna do is find some similar colors that match like a lot of the primer, and there's some of this, that one's painted, but there's some green in here. And get the fenders painted, and then have something that I can spray on there that can take rust, rust can build up on, and put some rust accelerator on there and really try to get, not an exact, but just something, get you know, a finish on the front fender and the bedsides and the hood where it looks patina. Even if it looks like someone tried to paint it or they tried to take some paint off of it to get it prepped for paint, that's what we want. Again, I'm not gonna nail that, so I'm not trying for that. Other thing is Rich with ColorTech from the beginning. Rich has been like my true OG help with this stuff. Even the logo, the MCD1 logo, Rich developed that with me. Like, I hit him up years and years ago, I think 2016. And I said, hey, I want to have like a logo. I know I want to say MCD1. I want it to be motorsports inspired and kind of moto inspired, and boom, he nailed it. And since then, he's nailed all the Fab Diaries, the Make Craftsmanship Great Again, like all the merch, all the stickers, all the banners, everything has been Rich with ColorTech. So I hit him up about this for Sand Sports. I said, how can we get a logo or a wrap going? Not so much a wrap, but just something here. And this was his idea. He's like, I think we should do something like retro, like Tomater style, or like a old kind of pinstriper, like window art kind of style. And we went through the throws of picking the colors, and then also like putting Vivian here. I told him something like I wanted to kind of have like it like World War II like bomber nose art with that. And I thought about a pinup, but that would just be extra. So this kind of vibe, I think this is perfect for the truck. We're gonna leave this. We're gonna try to incorporate Eric's logo somewhere. I don't know if we maybe not leave this, but move something down, or you know, put his logo somewhere that makes sense, just to tie everything together on his end too. That kind of covers that. I want to get into this. I guess we all have been biting off a lot, but the interior is pretty dialed. We talked about the dash. I think we even talked about it getting upholstered, so now the dash is upholstered. The inserts are in there. All of the electronics are in there. The shifter mount is done. The floors from like rocker panel in are done. It's not sealed, you know, like from the outside of the shock mount on that chassis to the cab. But there's a lot done in here, so we'll check that out and put a light in here too. I wouldn't know about that Saber light. And even though we don't talk to each other anymore, I will never forget that he was the first person. I actually used his. It was at another shop, and I used his, and then like he came to get it a while back, and then he pretty much gave it to me as a gift. And oh, man, life changing. You need these lights. These are Saber lights. If you don't have one, I would suggest getting one. But I think we've been through that before. Lots has changed in here. So all the floors are in, all your subfloors, firewall floors, 1/8 inch construction on these guys, rockers. These are all broke. They're all tied into the same bolt locations, and it broke over, and then this grabs the rockers and it bolts through on the underside. So everything's got a pretty tight kind of seal thing going on. And then of course one of the highlights here is this. So all Alcantara stitch dash. Got a 1/4 inch of foam. The proper way to do this is you don't just go right over the you know, the fiberglass or the sheet metal, but you put some foam on there, and it just adds like that organic feeling, and it's soft, and it does something that makes a huge difference. So all 3 seats are in. These are all PRP alphas. I spec'd them to match the dash. Same with the wheel. So everything is black Alcantara, white stitching, and it runs throughout, right? One thing we wanted to do is split the logo. So Eric and I both have stuff in here. You know, he's got his SoCal up front, and then I have my stuff. There you go, out back. Why is this thing tracking like this? There we go. So it's a pretty good vibe in here. I'm gonna sit in the middle. You can kind of see some more details. So this is our faceplate. So you can see the Switch Pro. We have a 12 button here. I did it short steering column. I think it's called a shorty. It's got tilt. Right. There we go, that's a better example. Autometer display. Obviously your 4L80 4-speed gate shifter on its own kind of floating mount here. And then your hardcore aggressive gaming pedal for gas, brake pedal. Just kind of a nice closed off interior. You get some really good detail out of the shock mounts and stuff here. And again, like I said, this part is open still. So we'll be able to seal all this in. I'm gonna go to the other side and talk about that a bit. Okay, one other thing to look at, I think we talked about this too, is the seat bracket. So there's that like X frame under here. Kind of see it. Each seat is on a slider, 6-inch throw slider. We just did the driver and the passenger just because it was easier to make the mounts consistent per side and not have to build something different or something like raised to account for the slider. So just some generic kind of typical sliders on here, and then Eric's also on those pegs down there. That goes up 1.5 inches for Eric just so the seat's higher. He sat in it at the Expo. He already mentioned that he wanted it a little higher. So that's all good, we'll get that thing done. And you can see kind of the passenger controls here. This Switch Pro that we had, we recycled, so this is an 8 button. It's not gonna have the symbols that are on there. What this is gonna be is like a 911 Switch Pro. So that means everything should come in automatically with your fans and, you know, fuel pumps and all that. And then what this is gonna be is just a dedicated override. So if something's not working, like, dude, it should be on, you just hit that and it forces it. That's why I kind of call it the 911 pad. The only other space here that you see is gonna be, and it feels as soft and as good as it probably looks. This is the best job I've ever seen done. So we had a guy, I kind of have a secret little guy, upholstery guy that does a lot of stuff for concept cars in the automotive manufacturing market. High-end Ferrari stuff, Lamborghini stuff, so the quality on this is insane. It's just a great addition. But anyways, there's a void here. This is gonna have a mob armor, like a bracket to hold a big tablet. And that's how we're gonna occupy all the space here. It's pretty spacious in here. You can see our enclosure panels are done on both sides. I just left that without an access panel to kind of see what's going on. You can see the coilover and the bypass and the serviceability there. We still have some room back behind these seats. And then I'm gonna get in the third as well, but there's some, just, you know, everything, the finish work is pretty dialed in here. This is a little bit off. I think we need to adjust the panel, but that's supposed to index. That's kind of our core there. Another thing too, all of the grade 8 like mock-up stuff in here, this 5/16 stuff, this will all get like a very small fender washer with a countersunk stainless bolt. And once all this is kind of powder coated black, that, you know, it would be pretty rude to put fender washers in all this stuff, especially if it was raw aluminum, because it would just stand out so much. But I think we'll get a definite win getting these things put in, the fender washers put in when everything's black. Something else to look at too is like the Clecos I mentioned. They're kind of littered throughout here. And all that stuff will have solid aircraft rivets, possibly countersunk in there upon final assembly. Same with this stuff, this will have countersunk 1024 hardware. So it'll really finish out, and we'll get powder coat on this stuff as well. So I am in the third seat here. This is probably the best seat in the house for sure. I know that's always a thing. Plenty of room. But just like the amount of space you have in here is absolutely satisfying. This, if I could choose to ride in one spot in here, the same with the approach angle, like the face of this thing, like the way you want to put, like I think you'd want it like a wider pad, but man, like the adjustability you have, and like this whole area feels so good. And just like the space in here is incredible. This is definitely maybe one of the most comfortable third seat arrangements I've ever been in. And I'm just glad we just had to plant stuff where it lies. Like, look at that, that's pretty aggressive as far as where the seats land on each other. So spacing is limited, but it's working out. You can kind of see some openings here. So, you know, from like the shock mount, inner part of the shock mount, you know, over into this triangle, we need to fill all that stuff. We have a perfect opportunity for harness bars that'll come from this junction. And we'll use just, you know, either 1 inch or 1.25 inches, kind of run through, run towards the back. We just got Bluetooth harness bars right now, and then dive back in. So everything's panning out the way it needs to be. One of the other things I'd like to touch on is this B-pillar tube. We'll get into that in just a second. I'm gonna move the seat. So like I was getting at, with the chassis off, there was it's hard to explain, but there's a B-pillar tube, a roof tube going across about here. The intersection where the C-pillar and the B-pillar tube come down is right here. So do Bluetooth invisible lining and you'll get a straight tube right here. We did a pretty solid guesstimate on if that would be okay for the seating and everything. Put the seat in for mock-up before we started doing the hard mounts. And like this tube that has the bend in it here, it was like so close that even when I was doing everything I could to talk myself like out of it, like, oh, it's fine, we'll just do this or do that, or put a pad there, or blah, blah, blah. And even when I was putting that tube there, I would like go to hit my head like on it, and it would hit so early because it was so much closer than I anticipated. It would like be like, oh shit, it's right there. And it was right almost in your temple area. Thought about it for like a day or 2 or 3. I'm like, we can't have that no matter what. Like, even if you had a helmet on and that tube is so close, you're gonna knock yourself out, and you know, something's gonna happen. You're gonna rattle your brain, blah, 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 so forth and so on. So we had the cab off at that point, made the executive decision. I think if you go here, I can go over to that side. Made the executive decision to chop, cut, rebuild. I had like tape laid out because, again, if you think about like from here over to here, you know, there was just a straight tube. Obviously the seat's pretty far back, but I'm like, what do we do to make this look like the rest of the chassis, make it strong first and foremost, make it look good in truggy form, and make it also like be safe. So what we had to do was we cut this tube out, we cut all of this out, cut all the welds out, dug it out because it was a primary tube down here. We dug that shit out, made it go away, and then boom, built this you know, this layout where we have this bend in here. It's also kicked outwards, so it's not like fully in line. It kind of comes out, so it favors your head more. And then we incorporated this kind of 2/3 radius gusset, just like you'd see up here. Just kind of carried the design through, and it like works so good. I remember with Joey, I sent him a picture, and I'm like, what do you think about the B-pillar? And he's like, looks good, dude. And he didn't know, because we did it in a point where, like, and that's always the best, is if you have something where you need to make a revision, come back strong and make it in a way where it doesn't look like a revision. And so that is a revision. Now you know, but it's all solid now. It's probably stronger than it was, and it's safe and it's out of the way. So that's that. I think we kind of covered most of the stuff in here. Everything's in. There's some areas, like I said, that we want to go from the chassis to the cab and conceal it, and that's one thing. I don't know which way we want to shoot, but I'll kind of talk about the bedsides and the exhaust again. We are getting this ready for Off-Road Expo. By the time you see this, it will already have been Off-Road Expo, but there will be an opportunity to see it there. And then kind of scheduling as far as this thing goes. Eric's been really good about communication. He's been really good about taking care of us, making sure everything is moving on his end, and we've been kind of following suit with that. So wanted it for Halloween. We might be able to get that going, but no matter what, I will not let this thing go in the dirt unless it gets a tune. Keith needs to tune it again. It's going to be a whole different animal. It'll be a better animal, but I just want Eric to be able to drive it right out the gate and be comfortable and not know that there's something with the tuning that could be better. things to think about or look forward to next update. Exhaust is one of the big ones. Bed sides on is one of the big ones. Fuel filler, fuel tank in. So the plan right now, once this goes to Off-Road Expo, it leaves from Off-Road Expo to go get wired, then it comes back. So we want to just get some of the big basic chunks done. I don't think we need to plumb everything. We just need to make sure everything that needs to be wired is kind of set in here and prepared for that. But you know, we're in a pretty good spot. Colin's finishing up the whole front end, like the core support, light support, all that stuff. Then he'll move on to other stuff, but the big stuff is definitely like exhaust, bed sides. I'd like to get front panel work done. Also enclose the cab in the areas where it's open. So that would be like the front wiper cowl area in front of the windshield. It would be the shock mount, like outside shock mount areas. And then it would also be this back sill. This drives me nuts right here. So I need to finish this and at least just fill that, finalize something here, and get my tin work going up here. And then Mike, he is going to come and get us, we're gonna make a template for him for the rear glass, and then he's gonna cut us a nice new piece of glass for the back that'll probably gasket in just like the windshield. The windshield is a original 73, well it's not an original, but it's a 73 F-100 windshield, and they still use like a really crazy, like a 2-stage gasket where you kind of like, once it seats, you like pull it and it like unfolds and grabs on. It's awesome science. So we'll have all the glass in, side windows will be in, just be a lot more finished. Definitely learned a little lesson with needing to have the brakes maybe plumbed to go to shows at Sand Sports. So we'll have the brakes plumbed. If it's not just the front, it'll be something just so we can stop a little easier and we're not relying on human power. I think that's it. Check for aprons, check for shirts, check for stickers. We should have some. We'll probably sell all the aprons, but we'll at least be making another run of them, and then we'll have some shirts and stickers. So hope you guys had a good Monday. Enjoy the update. Again, if you can share the channel, share the channel. It doesn't mean you need to like post it, but just if you know someone would enjoy this stuff and they want to watch this stuff, then just share it with your vocals, you know. Thanks.